Dijonai Carrington is looking around the room like, oh my God, I've never been in this much fire. I mean, it's getting so bad that now her endorsements are potentially about to pull out on representing Dijonai Carrington.
DJ Carrington's career is coming apart at the seams, and the speed at which it is happening is breathtaking. We are not talking about a gradual fade over a season or two. We are talking about a total meltdown that played out across the course of a single week. One reckless foul, one impulsive post on social media, multiple failed attempts at damage control. And now, according to the rumors moving rapidly through the WNBA and the broader sports business community, her major endorsement partnerships are disappearing. DJ Carrington is looking around the room like, oh my God, I have never been in this much trouble. It is getting so bad that her endorsements are potentially on the verge of pulling out entirely. That is the picture right now. A young player in the middle of her career, watching everything she constructed, not just on the court but off of it in the form of sponsorships and brand equity, begin to disintegrate in front of her eyes.
Reebok is reportedly dropping their endorsement for Dijonai Carrington after she attacked Sophie Cunningham. Let's go.
Reebok, one of her primary corporate partners, is reportedly cutting ties. Reebok is reportedly ending their endorsement relationship with DJ Carrington following her attack on Sophie Cunningham. Let's get into it. And here is where the story takes an especially interesting turn. Here is where it evolves into something that goes far beyond one player's failure of judgment. According to the rumors spreading at considerable speed right now, Reebok is not simply walking away from Carrington. They are shifting their focus toward a different Indiana Fever player entirely. A more marketable one, a player who has not made the kinds of impulsive decisions that obliterate brand value overnight. Caitlin Clark, the very player whose presence on the Fever has sat at the center of so much drama and controversy throughout this season. The very player whose team is now positioned to benefit from another player's catastrophic lapse in judgment. This is the story of how a single moment spirals outward into multiple simultaneous crises, and how a player's own choices transformed one bad play into a professional catastrophe she may spend years trying to recover from. Before we examine the collapse itself, we need to understand who Carrington is and what she had actually constructed. Carrington entered the WNBA as a promising defensive talent. She arrived in the league with genuine athleticism, defensive intensity, and a competitive edge that coaching staffs value highly.
Did y'all see what happened when this young lady got ejected from a WNBA game the other day for a flagrant foul on Sophie Cunningham? She mugged her. Damn near came across like decapitating her, for crying out loud. That was definitely
She was never a prolific scorer. That was never the nature of her game. But she was a capable, contributing rotational player who could hold her own on both ends of the floor. More significantly, she had assembled endorsement partnerships. Reebok identified something worth investing in. They recognized a young, athletic, marketable player with the potential to develop into a more prominent brand presence over time. For professional athletes, endorsement income is not secondary. It often matches or exceeds what they earn from their actual contracts. In the WNBA specifically, where salaries are dramatically lower than those of their NBA counterparts, sponsorship revenue can represent the line between financial security and financial precarity. Carrington had begun to establish that security for herself. She was moving along a trajectory, not a superstar trajectory, but a credible, professional, sustainable one. She was doing exactly what professional athletes are supposed to do, growing her game while thoughtfully managing the brand she was building off of it. Then one moment dismantled all of it. It was a nationally televised game, the Chicago Sky facing the Indiana Fever. Primetime basketball with a significant audience tuned in. Sophie Cunningham, a Fever player and a fellow professional in the women's basketball space, pushed out on a fast break. A clean opportunity. A moment where the game opened up in front of her. Then Carrington arrived from behind. What followed was not a case of two players competing for positioning. It was not a scenario involving two bodies colliding naturally in pursuit of the ball. It was deliberate, excessive, flagrant contact that served no basketball purpose whatsoever. Carrington was not attempting to block the shot. She was not contesting a layup. She was attempting to stop Cunningham through sheer physical force, making contact with her head and neck in the process. That is not basketball. That is not competitive fire. That is a decision. And the officials recognized it as exactly that. Flagrant foul, penalty 2. Automatic ejection. Gone from the game immediately. Did you all see what happened when this young lady got ejected from a WNBA game for a flagrant foul on Sophie Cunningham? She practically took her head off. That was absolutely a hard foul. The national media did not soften their assessment. They described it in honest terms: excessive, unnecessary, dangerous. Not a playing hard moment. Not a competitive basketball play. A foul that carried a genuine risk of serious injury. Cunningham went down hard. The video circulated immediately. Within minutes, millions of people had watched the clip. Commentary poured in from every direction. The conversation went national with remarkable speed. At that point, Carrington faced a decision: address the situation with professionalism or make everything considerably worse. She chose the latter. Rather than waiting for the game to conclude, rather than stepping back and collecting her thoughts before speaking publicly, rather than accepting responsibility and handling the moment like a seasoned professional, Carrington reached for her phone from the locker room bench and typed out a message. 2 words: white privilege. Just like that. While the game was still being played, while millions of viewers were still engaged with what had happened, while her coaches and teammates remained on the court, Carrington published those 2 words to her social media account. No context attached, no explanation offered, no clarification about what she intended the words to mean. DJ Carrington posted white privilege from the locker room of a game she was actively participating in. Think about that. She fouls Sophie Cunningham aggressively. Cunningham, being a white player, draws a flagrant 2, gets ejected, walks to the locker room, and posts white privilege in the middle of the game. The implication landed immediately and with enormous inflammatory force. The suggestion was that the flagrant foul call had been influenced by racial bias, that because Sophie Cunningham is white, the officials had treated the play differently, had judged the contact more harshly because of race. Except that is not remotely what occurred. The foul was called immediately. Both officials viewed it identically. The review confirmed the call was correct. But Carrington had now introduced race into a situation that was entirely about basketball, about a reckless, dangerous play that clearly warranted a flagrant foul designation. The backlash arrived instantly and without restraint. The conversation shifted direction overnight. It was no longer about the foul. It was about Carrington's judgment. It was about her accusation. It was about her claim that racial bias had shaped an officiating decision. National media figures weighed in. Sports analysts with no personal connection to either player began discussing Carrington's post. The story had morphed completely, from hard foul in a WNBA game to player accuses officials of racial discrimination, and the responses were uniformly and harshly critical. You hit her in the head. You drew blood. You made no contact with the ball at any point. So to suggest that call was based on white privilege was deeply ignorant and frankly asinine. Ignorant, asinine. Those were the precise words being deployed by former players and media analysts breaking down what Carrington had done. She had taken a situation in which she was unambiguously in the wrong, in which she had committed a foul that was visibly excessive, and attempted to redirect the narrative by invoking race. She had weaponized a genuinely serious social issue as a tool to escape personal accountability. People recognized it, and people responded to it with significant criticism. The conversation was no longer sympathetic in any direction. The narrative had shifted entirely. Carrington was no longer simply a player who had made a bad play on the court. She was a player who had made a bad play, been justifiably penalized for it, and then made a far worse decision by attributing racial motivation to a call that had nothing to do with race. She had surrendered any claim to victim status. She had become the central problem in her own story. At this juncture, the correct move was obvious. Say nothing. Allow the story to run its natural course, fade from the news cycle, and redirect attention to basketball going forward. Instead, She made everything worse across multiple days with multiple different explanations. First, she claimed she had never suggested the foul call itself was an act of white privilege. She insisted people were misreading her post. She suggested that her critics lacked the critical thinking capacity to interpret her words correctly. I never once claimed the assessment of the foul was white privilege. That was your assumption. Try exercising your critical thinking skills, she continued, adding that she was the last person who could be considered ignorant on the subject and referencing her academic background at Stanford. But she had posted white privilege. That is precisely what she posted. The evidence was irrefutable. The screenshot was replicated across every platform. She could not retract it. She could not undo it. And now, she was asserting that she had never said what everyone had seen her say. The dishonesty was compounding the original error in real time. Then she pivoted to a different strategy entirely. She invoked her Stanford education. She implied that the people questioning her reasoning were themselves the ignorant ones. This went over terribly. It read as condescending and dismissive. It gave the impression that she believed her academic credentials granted her a level of insight that ordinary observers simply could not access. Public perception deteriorated further with each successive explanation. Each attempt to walk the post back appeared less genuine than the one before it. Each new statement felt more defensive, more deflecting, more disconnected from accountability. The WNBA community, media figures, and supporters were watching this unfold in real time and arriving at an increasingly firm conclusion. Carrington was not prepared to accept responsibility. She was not acknowledging that she had committed a dangerous foul and then compounded it with an irresponsible social media post. She was digging in. She was pushing back. She was directing criticism at the people holding her accountable. This is precisely how careers deteriorate in the social media era, not because of a single mistake, but because of the choices made in response to that mistake. And then came Sophie Cunningham's response. Cunningham is the fever player on the receiving end of the foul. She is the one who absorbed the excessive contact. She is the one who went to the floor hard. She had every justification to respond with anger, with emotion, with pointed public criticism. Instead, Sophie Cunningham handled the entire situation with complete and unwavering professionalism. She stated clearly that the league was addressing the matter, that this had nothing whatsoever to do with race, that she herself had been ejected for a similar situation the previous season and had accepted that consequence without complaint. There was no reason to bring race into a basketball play. She did not go after Carrington. She did not escalate the situation through counterposts on social media. She did not attempt to justify why the foul was wrong or argue the severity of the contact. She simply, calmly, and clearly presented the facts. The matter was being handled by the league. Race played no role in any of this, and there was no legitimate basis for introducing it. That response made Carrington's behavior look considerably worse, by direct comparison. Cunningham appeared composed, rational, and clear in her thinking. Carrington appeared defensive, evasive, and increasingly erratic. This contrast is not incidental in situations like this. It is everything. When one party navigates adversity with composure and another spirals visibly outward, observers absorb that comparison and render a judgment that tends to be lasting. Carrington had lost the public relations dimension of this entirely, not because she committed a flagrant foul, because those happen and the basketball world understands that, but because the manner in which she responded to that foul was more damaging than the foul itself. Corporate partners were monitoring this entire situation as it developed. Reebok did not reportedly sever ties with Carrington because of the foul in isolation. Flagrant fouls occur. Players receive ejections. That is an accepted part of competitive basketball. But a player who commits an excessive foul gets penalized for it through the correct and established process, and then immediately reaches for her phone to inject race into a situation where race played no part whatsoever. That is a liability assessment. That is a player demonstrating a pattern of poor judgment under pressure. That is a player revealing a lack of emotional regulation in high visibility moments. That is a player who may very well repeat that pattern in the future, in front of an audience, in a way that attaches directly to any brand maintaining a relationship with her. Reebok has an extensive roster of athletes available to partner with. Reebok operates with options. Why sustain a relationship with a player whose judgment has now been placed under a national spotlight for all the wrong reasons? Dijonai Carrington just watched the early architecture of her professional career begin to come apart across the span of a single week. And the part that is most difficult to look away from is that she authored nearly all of the destruction herself. Her endorsements are reportedly on the verge of disappearing. The flagrant foul carried real but containable consequences: ejection, a suspension, possibly financial penalties. Those consequences would have remained isolated to that game, that moment, that week. The social media post, the string of explanations, the defensive posturing directed at critics, that is what converted a single-game incident into a career-level crisis. And the rumor now is that Reebok is directing their attention elsewhere, toward a player whose judgment is not in question, toward a player with a significantly cleaner brand profile, toward someone like Caitlin Clark. There is a specific and painful irony embedded in who Reebok is allegedly considering as the replacement: Caitlin Clark. The same player whose presence in the Fever organization has generated so much tension and resentment this season. The same player who has occupied the center of the franchise's most contentious storylines. A player on the same team. From a pure business standpoint, the logic is self-evident. Clark is the most prominent name in women's basketball at this moment. Clark commands the largest platform available in the sport. Clark generates more attention than any other player in the league by a substantial margin. Of course, Reebok would want that association. But from Carrington's vantage point, this has to register as something particularly stinging. She is not simply losing a sponsorship deal, she is losing it to a teammate. She is watching an opportunity that might have continued to grow in her direction redirect itself to someone playing in the same building, wearing the same uniform. That is a specific kind of painful that goes beyond the financial loss itself. This is the precise cost of poor judgment in an era where everything is documented, distributed, and permanent within seconds. One impulsive post composed in a locker room. One defensive response that compounded the original problem. One attempt to redirect accountability by invoking race in a context where race was entirely absent. And suddenly, the damage extends far beyond this week. The brand she was carefully assembling has been set back significantly. The sponsorship that was helping fund her financial stability has reportedly walked out the door. And the rest of the WNBA is observing all of it, absorbing the lesson, and developing a clearer understanding that in this moment in sports media history, what you do with your phone carries consequences that match or exceed what you do between the lines. The game is no longer confined to the court. The game includes every decision you make when the final whistle has blown and the camera is still running. Carrington just absorbed that lesson in the most expensive and public way it can possibly be taught.